Hello, everyone on LinkedIn. We are live now. Myself and my latest podcast guest, Nausheen Saumtally, who is based in Toronto, and we're trying to find a compromise around the time. Our clocks changed at the weekend, and yours would have changed then a few weeks ago as well. So, delighted to have you as my guest on the podcast that came out on Friday, but also today on my LinkedIn Live. You might be able to hear from my voice a bit of a scratchy throat, a bit of a cold at the moment. So I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time speaking today, but it's really just to get into a conversation about what we talked about on the podcast, and introduce Nausheen to everyone. So do you want to tell people a little bit about yourself and your background, and then we can dive into talking about what we spoke about on the podcast?
Absolutely. So, hey, everyone, it's great to be here. And I had a fantastic time recording the podcast a few weeks ago. It was such a great conversation. So let me give you a little bit of background about me. So my name is Nausheen Saumtally. I am in Toronto, and I am a corporate coach and trainer, as well as a mindset coach for individuals as well. So from the corporate side, I use a lot of tools like the DISC assessment and other tools to really bring teams together, which is a little bit about what we talked about on the podcast. And prior to being all of that, I was actually a business development manager at Microsoft for many years, where I had the time of my life. But my passion really lied into empowering teams, empowering people. And so I changed to that. And this is what I do today.
Yeah,
so a little background about me.
Yeah, like similar to myself, I have that corporate background. I worked all over the world for global companies, and I got to a stage in my career where I just thought, how can I turn what I know into helping other people, essentially? But yeah, no, loved the conversation about DISC, and I've done the DISC assessment on a number of occasions, actually, and sometimes kind of officially, and other times it's been just kind of a ad hoc. Oh, are you introvert versus extrovert, and do you prefer working with data and detail, or do you prefer working, things like that?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, some really, really fascinating insights as well around the different percentages. I was really surprised because I'm an S, like that would be my dominant, no, S, yes. That'd be my dominant kind of trait, if that's what you call it. But I didn't realize that was so prevalent as well. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about what DISC is?
Absolutely.
Profiles, and then maybe we kind of touch on some of the points that we touched on in the podcast as well.
Absolutely. So very briefly, for those of you who are not very familiar with the DISC is a behavioral analysis tool. So what it does is it doesn't tell you this is who you are and that's it. It just gives you an idea of how you are behaving in a certain environment. So when somebody is taking the DISC assessment, they will think about a certain environment. So very often it's the work environment. So because I work a lot with corporates to train their team. So they'll think about the work environment when they're answering the questions, and it will show them what is their dominant traits within that environment. So the different traits are the D, the I, the S, and the C. So the D stands for dominant. So when you think about the dominant personality, you'll think about the people who love authority. They thrive in that environment. They're very comfortable to take control. And then you have the I. The I stands for influencing. These are the people who are the life of the party. They love to talk, and they're very spontaneous as well. Then we have the S personality, which constitute the majority of the population, 69% of the population. And these are the people who are very loyal, very steady, and they thrive in a stable environment. And the final one is C for compliance. So when I think about the compliance style, I always recall the people I've worked with in corporate who were in the compliance department or the accounting department or auditing department, because the C personality is the personality that values accuracy and they love data and figures. So that's a broad overview of the DISC personality style. But when somebody takes the DISC personality style, it gives you a lot more. It gives you your strengths, your weaknesses. It tells you how you react when you're under stress. It tells you the difference between what you're expecting from your environment and how you're behaving. So that's an indicator of potential stresses within your environment. So lots of information in that. And I think in the in the podcast, we deep dive a little bit more into the different personality styles, some of the traits of the personality styles, but also we touch about communication. I don't want to give too much. I'm just going to say that when we talk, we think that other people are not understanding us, and that's on them.
Yeah.
But if you'd like to know a little bit more about that, we talked about the golden rule versus the platinum rule. So go check the podcast, because I guarantee you that is going to help you in every communication, corporate, family, personal. Apply that rule.
Yeah, we've just had a comment actually. Now it just says LinkedIn user, so I can't see exactly who it is. So I'll check LinkedIn afterwards. Normally I see people's names popping up here. But the LinkedIn user has said, great conversation. We also use DISC in our teams, and it's a good tool to find our strengths and weaknesses. So
absolutely.
Definitely, yeah. And we did, before we came on live, Nausheen, we were talking about how when we're communicating with other people, we always kind of put the onus on them. And it's like, why can't they understand what it is that I'm trying to say, when actually it's about raising your own self-awareness, first of all, about how you communicate, but then also understanding that other people may have a different communication style. They might like things differently to you as well. I must check my DISC profile, my most recent one again, because when you talk about things like compliance and auditing and data, like that sounds right up my alley as well. So I wonder, am I a dominant S, but then with a little C and a little I in there as well? And
yeah,
I'm sure I'm quite low on the D side of things.
okay.
Oh, Stefan from Sweden. Yeah, normally it shows the name, so I'm not sure what's going on today, that we don't see the name. Sorry, go on, Nausheen.
So you mentioned about how we use it for communication with each other, right? But also when you think about the broader company, it also helps the broader company to know what their employees are looking for, what they want, and what to do in order to satisfy the need that the employees have. I'll share a quick example with you, because I literally just got an email from one of my corporate clients, and so they did the DISC assessment for a team of 50 people, and after that, I give them an analysis of what was the team primary personalities, and there's some analysis on that, and I suggested a few things that they could do based on the primary personalities. And that has been it's been 6 months since we did that, and she just told me, so they applied what I suggested them to do, and she is so surprised as to how people are showing up, are willing to share, and are being vulnerable in what I told them to do. And that's really bonding the team together. And I think that's it all started with the DISC, right? Because now you know what's the primary personality style within your team, so management can adapt their style to that. So then you become more effective, the employees are happier, productivity goes higher. I mean, it's just the foundation that corporate can build on, and it creates infinite possibilities. This is the way I see it. And go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, go on. Yeah. No, I was going to say that's an incredible result as well. To have that kind of shift in the team dynamics and how they actually relate to each other, and it's not just a one-on-one communication; it's kind of a team-based focus as well. And this idea of allowing people to be more vulnerable at work. And I do have a couple of episodes where we touch on, well, one that is dedicated to vulnerability in leadership coming up in the next few weeks, and then the following week we talk kind of a bigger picture, but we will touch on vulnerability in leadership as well. So I think it's something that's definitely really important, and it's great to see that kind of result for your client as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what companies need to dive more into.
Yeah,
because people need it. People need that.
Yeah,
and when
definitely.
you give that to them, they feel heard, they feel listened to, and they can come to work feeling good.
This is it. Yeah. So for anyone who hasn't listened to the podcast episode yet, there is a link in the comments below. So you will see it below this this announcement for the LinkedIn Live. You should see a link to the podcast episode, but you'll also find it wherever you listen to podcasts. So whether that's on Apple or Spotify or Castbox, or you'll find it anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Nausheen, is there anything else that you'd like to share in
I
advance
I did
of people
want to,
listening?
I did want to touch on. So we talked about DISC in the
Yeah.
podcast. We also talked about something else.
Yes, we did.
We talked about something that people refer to as work-life balance, work-life integration, work-life harmony, but we kind of changed the way we look at that.
Yeah.
And the primary thinking behind that is so from my perspective, as long as we're going to call it work-life something, it's going to be work and life. So the way we talked about it in the podcast was really a way that is more holistic to look at this. And so if you'd like to know more about that, go and listen to the podcast. I also have a worksheet that I'm going to share in the comments below that you can download just to give you an idea of how to make the difference between work-life balance, work-life integration, and the other thing that we talked about. I don't want to give too much about this again, but that was an interesting conversation as well.
Yeah, that's a real teaser now. People are going to have to listen and tune into the podcast to know more. Thank you so much for your time today, Nausheen, and for your time on the podcast as well. It's an absolute delight to talk to you, and it's so great that we connected. So thank you.
I had so much fun. Thank you. And I hope the audience will love it and learn a lot from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks everyone for whether you're tuning in live today or whether you're catching on the replay. Always value, dropping a few comments down. Let us know what you thought of the podcast. Let us know what you thought of the live. Thank you so much for tuning in.